Hi, my name is Cindy Olson, and I'll be speaking to you today about Anne Sexton's poems, written from inspiration or desperation. Anne Sexton was a nationally acclaimed poet and playwright. She won the Pulitzer Prize for her poetry, and her work was very popular during the 1950s and 1970s. She wrote about controversial topics and struggled with depression and mental illness. What inspired Anne Sexton to write? Her past pain and trauma, her love for literature as a release, which was encouraged by her therapist, or was it her dysfunctional family, which probably gave her a lot to write about? Her mental illness and depression, we believe, is triggered from a young age of possible abuse. The sources that I looked at all mention that possibility. Anne Sexton's style of writing is considered confessionalism, which was a popular style of writing in the United States in the 1950s. It was considered very personal. It focused on controversial societal topics such as sexuality, mental illness, and suicide. These things were not often talked about, and Anne Sexton, for bringing those types of things out in her poetry, it was something that was new wave. Anne Sexton's style of writing was labeled, as I said, confessionalism, which would infer that she is writing about personal memories and experiences. Confessional style writing is a representation which is demonstrated by figurative language and imagery in order to give us an idea of what her innermost thoughts and feelings were. The interpretation of Anne Sexton's poems is that I believe that she writes from the heart, from her pain and trauma. And there are some that claim that her work really isn't confessionalism. They feel that it was more her knowledge of pain and suffering and memories of happier times that she wrote about, and it wasn't necessarily all from her past, but she knew how to reach the people after a while, and she became a very popular poet. Anne Sexton seemed to have pulled her inspiration from her work, again, like I said, through her pain and suffering, but the confessional style, the way that she was speaking about life, let alone writing such personal things, personal issues, talking about alcoholism and depression and her lust for death, was really a part of Sexton's candidness, and she used the power of fiction in her poems, but again, I believe a lot of that was true. Anne Sexton's first poem was written at the suggestion of her therapist. While she was in therapy, after her second child, she suffered from postpartum depression. Her therapist suggested that she write down her emotions in between the sessions. She was encouraged to make sure she included her feelings, emotions, and dreams. In 1957, Sexton joined a writing group, a poetry workshop at the Boston Center of Adult Education. That's where she learned about sonnets, and it was that form of writing that she really liked. A definition of a sonnet is a poem made up of 14 lines that rhyme in a fixed pattern. I didn't see that in her poetry so much. What I really saw was more desperation and descriptions of, sadness and the way that she would escape from that. She wrote her first book in 1960, which was summarized by the Poetry Foundation as madness and near madness of pathetic, well-meaning, necessarily tentative and perilous attempts at cure of the patient, slow coming back into the human associations and responsibilities which the old previous self demands. I do believe that she wrote to feel better, but she also wrote to maybe reach others and help them to heal. Anne Sexton's accomplishments, she received many honors and awards, fellowships, grants, honorary degrees, and she actually held professorships at Colgate University and Boston College. In 1967, she won the Pulitzer Prize for her book, Live or Die. No big surprise there. That seems to be her overall theme in her poetry. Anne Sexton received support from Erica Jong, an American author and teacher known for her fiction and poetry. Referring to Anne Sexton, she writes, "She is an important poet not only because her courage in dealing with previously forbidden subjects, but because she can make the language sing." I didn't necessarily think that her language sang, unless they're meaning that it was creative in the way that she expressed her depression. Maybe in that case, then, I guess I would say that it does sing. Anne Sexton also has had a friend by the name of Maxine Kuhlman, who was enrolled with Sexton in the 1957 workshop in Boston, and they became close friends. And Maxine Kuhlman describes Sexton as having the belief that it was the writing of poetry that gave her something to work toward and develop, and this enabled her to endure life for as long as she did. In 1974, at the age of 46, despite a successful writing career, she lost her battle with mental illness and committed suicide in her home, in her garage, by asphyxiation. Anne Sexton was born in 1928 and died in 1974. There's a lot of information about Anne Sexton on the internet, and when you read her poems, I'd be curious to see if you come up with the same conclusions I did. Thank you.